A lot of people are learning all of this, like what we hear people say, doing it in the trenches and all that sort of thing. Uh, the first time you go in to buy a house, you don't know what's in front of you because
Mm,
nobody's really spoken about it unless you talk to your parents about how they do it, or you've been involved with your parents while they've been buying a house, selling a house, and you learn about all the intricacies of the costs that come along from real estate agents when they go to sell your property, and then you've got your conveyances and the other legal fees and stamp duties, and then you've got to find out about the finance in that aspect, and then what's going to be involved with the capacity and valuation on the property, and it
mm,
just adds on. There's always one thing after another.
yeah.
But if you go in the first time and you've got no idea about it, it is scary as all get out. You don't
Mhm.
know what's going to be happening, and you don't know how many different things you're going to get charged with while you're doing this.
Thinking about building or renovating? Or maybe you are already knee-deep in a project now. Are you feeling unsure of which steps to take and if you are making the right calls? You're not alone. Welcome to Builders Beyond Borders, the podcast where experienced Aussie builders share real stories, insider tips, and practical advice so you can build with confidence, avoid costly mistakes, and actually enjoy the journey. Let's dive in.
Hi, we're here today on Builders Beyond Borders podcast. Just myself, Shannon from DJH Builders and Hugh from New Realm Homes in Victoria. We were just having a conversation around finance and how quickly it can get out of control if the finance is not sort of confirmed in those early stages of doing a project. And it just highlights how important the legwork is that you need to do before a project even gets anywhere off the ground. We have relationships with building designers and architects, and we refer people that we trust, that we've worked with before, to do the design, and we know that they're really good at what they do and they're efficient and they communicate really well. What's your experience with adopting that practice for people, for finance brokers and people in finance?
Yeah, it's a fun little question actually, because a lot of the times, because we're so adept within our businesses and our practices when it comes to actually building the homes and delivering on the products that we need to within a building project, it's an often neglected space. Is that space between coming up with an idea for designing a home and then delivering it?
Mm,
That space is there's such a void. So here on one side we've got the idea, I want to do something on my home. Along the way, you've got to be thinking about your finance and whether it's actually capable of being done to be able to get over here to actually building it. Now, there's a lot of hurdles that come in between, and when when people haven't actually done any kind of building work or needed to deal with financing for a construction loan, or even to the point of just purchasing a property. There's, as we were discussing just before, there's that certain space where you get to a point, and there's what finance companies, banks, and all that sort of thing would characterize as overcapitalizing. And when there's a fine line that comes into it with overcapitalizing on a property and doing too much construction on something, and its value at the end isn't going to be anywhere near the amount of return if the property was to sell, or the finance falls through, or someone defaults on the loan, anything like that. And this is where a lot of projects can actually fall over, which is a scary proposition for homeowners. If you're going to be going in and you're going to be doing a lot of work with design on a home and coming up with all these wonderful ideas for your property, only to be knocked back after signing a contract based on a valuation that the bank sent, a valuation that's been done by a valuer that's come out to your property from the bank or from the finance company to say, hey, look, even with the improvements on the property, we've still got a significant gap between the value of the property and what's going to be financed. And a lot of properties stop. A lot of projects stop at that point because things just, they can't go forward. But this is where it sort of gets the crux of what we're talking about. Is we've got these relationships with good designers and engineers and the guys that can deliver on the work and make sure that things can go back and forth. How many of us actually have really good relationships with brokers or finance companies, people that deal with this sort of thing very regularly? We're finding that we're having clients come to us and they're asking for that information from us. And sometimes we can give it to them, other times we can't. But even saying that, there's so many options out there for everybody to be able to get the right information, like whether it's wealth development groups, or like just going and speaking to a broker, or some finance gurus, I guess you could say. But I definitely work with a couple of different finance companies well, more specifically brokers, that have helped clients out in the past. And while we can recommend these people, they're not necessarily always going to be suited to each individual client that sort of comes along. And so that's one of the reasons why we do ask in initial contact with leads, clients, prospective clients, what have you done about your finance? Are you self-funded? Are you going to be loaning a part of the property value, or project value, or what's going to be going on with this? And the responses we get to that question alone are always hilarious.
Mm.
Because some people, we know that everybody likes to keep their cards close to their chest, because, I mean, builders, we're all scary. We're trying to take your money. But are we really? No. The reason that we are actually, like for us, the reason we are asking that question is because we want to ensure that the experience you have is going to be the one that's going to deliver a really good outcome. And you don't want to be in that position, like we were talking about earlier, where you get to a point and the finance gets knocked back and you've already signed a contract. You've already possibly started some work on site, or things like the contract, well, in Victoria, the homeowners warranty insurance has been purchased. And that's increasing in cost, because whether the project goes ahead because of that finance, you're still going to be up for fees and costs as well. And those costs were going to be part of that loan. But if that loan hasn't been approved
There's no money.
and there's no money, then you could end up with a legal situation that could be really, really dire as well,
Mm.
and cost you a significant amount of money that you hadn't planned for.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, the conversation needs to be had really early on. Have you sorted out your finance? Do you need assistance speaking to someone about your finance? And that's when we can, as builders, we can actually help give some guidance to be able to find the best way forward with that. Because at the end of the day, we want to deliver on a home that's going to be really positive for you. The questions that we ask for a reason, and a lot of the times we'll even give you a good story on why we're asking that question as well. A lot of the time it's based on previous experience. Like, I know that you've had yourself, Shannon, and a lot of other guys that we know, we've all experienced some sort of financial strain coming from a bank or a
Yeah,
finance company. And
exactly. And I think a lot of people, I think bankers and finance can be a bit of an old school mentality where you always use the same person.
mm,
My dad used this guy for finance, so we used him. So, but might not be the best person suited. Like, finance isn't black and white. There are ways that they can go around to get the result that they need. So you've just got to have a really good broker, or a finance person looking after you. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be Barry that your dad has banked with for 100 years. Like, he might not be the right fit.
mm,
It's important to look outside the square a bit, I think, and look after yourself
mm.
first.
And it also falls onto the other side of that aspect as well, where people can have the finance, but their budgets might be not aligned.
Mm.
And so this is where everyone being asked about budgets is going to come down to that factor of whether, one, you can afford it, two, whether it's financeable, and three, whether you're going to be overcapitalizing on your home,
And that's
or
the
the property
story.
you own.
Yeah, that's the story that we had. These poor couple that were told initially back in February this year, you can lend over $1 million. Like, that, your wages have
Mm,
the borrowing capacity of $1 million. So they're like, oh well, there's no problem with finance then. So all this work happens in the meantime. They've outlaid a lot more than anyone. And as I said to you before, like, moved into a rental property preparing for the extension of their home. It's devastating stuff and it's cost them a fortune, only to find that the valuation was the thing that let them down at the end of the day, I believe that it's the finance broker who's let them down because they've not protected them along the way and said, like, this is going to be subject to evaluation. You need to understand that you owe this much on the property. It's worth this much, and it's not going to. It doesn't add up. So all that time, 8 months of work and money for them, it's just devastating, the outcome. Market changes as well. So it costs more to build things, but the market has now like become a bit stale and properties aren't moving as quickly as they used to. And they're not worth as much as they were in that big boom that we've experienced recently. So it's just a really bad situation. And it's something that people need to be aware of.
Mm. Well, the volatility of the market alone, not just sort of limiting it to the build cost,
Mm.
but the property valuations. A lot of people don't consider that to be part of what they're thinking about. When it comes to their own homes, that more particularly than anything else, this is where the problem that does come with any kind of building project is that aspect of the valuations by the banks before, during, and then after, with a volatile market going up and down.
Mm.
So 12 months ago, just going by the aspect of, hey, look, we're wanting to do this project. We've got to do a design, and the design might have so much going on in it, and have the property might have a couple of conditions where council need to be involved with delivering some sort of planning permit or a planning scheme permit, depending on where you are in Australia. That aspect of things could take anywhere upwards 12, 18 months. In that time, what's changed?
Yeah.
How many things have changed in the market? Not limiting to just the construction itself,
Yeah.
because you can have property market changes, a property crash, and that changes the valuation of every single property
Yeah.
in the area, whether it's going to be an investment, whether it's going to be a development, whether it's going to be your own home, whether you're going to rent out part of your home.
Mm.
All these factors come into it, and everybody needs someone who's going to be in their corner that's going to be discussing those possible volatile elements within a project itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're suggesting is that, and even it's not as silly to suggest that you should get an independent valuer and pay for however much they cost, a few $100s to get them to value at the beginning so you know where you're sitting. So you can then have your builder's rough estimate or whatever the builder's going to provide to you to give you
Mm,
a ballpark of how much it's going to be. And then you can sort of figure out, have a good finance person to go back to and say, this is what the valuation sits at now. This is what it's going to cost. How does it look? And you
yeah.
can sort of nip it on the bud in that first month, like just to know where you stand and not be going in so blind.
Oh, that's exactly right, and this is where if you've done any investments or had an investment property or developments, that sort of thing, you'll start to get into that space where you're relying on a lot of other people to do what's called a feasibility, and within a feasibility, you'll be going to real estate agents and things like this. Now, real estate agents, sometimes they can be very subjective, but they can give you the relevant information, and
Yeah.
they can give you a range on what properties are going to be valued at, based on the area and their expertise and the current market as well. And a lot of times, while banks send out a valuer, a lot of times they're generally just a real estate agent from down the road.
Mm.
And when it comes to those valuations, you can take a valuation that you get done by say 3 real estate agents in your area, and that will give you a pretty reasonable idea, and you can tell them, "This is what I'm looking to do." And, like, we do it with investment properties ourselves, where we're speaking to the real estate agents. There might be 3, there might be 5, there might be 10,
Mm.
and we ask them, "Hey, look, we're looking to knock down this house, and we're looking to put up 2 townhouses. This is where the property is. Can you come and give us a valuation on what you think it's going to be? 1, for rental opportunity afterwards, and 2, for saleability. And let's just say the time frame is going to be 12 months that we're going to do this."
Mm.
It's cheap insurance to find
Mm.
out whether things are going to be valuable, and they'll do it on renovations as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a safe bet to go and get that valuation done by a real estate agent, and that's something that can also go into your finance documentation
Mm.
to also give you that feasibility on whether it's achievable, whether it's not, whether there's a possibility that you might be overcapitalizing and that bank might knock back what you're asking for as well. You might have the capacity with your income to be able to finance it, but there's other factors that come
So,
in. Mm.
yeah, that's only one part of it, like a very
Yeah.
small component.
Yeah.
Borrowing power as opposed to all these other components put together and has to work to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
There's lots
Oh,
of fun to be had.
yeah, absolutely. It's adds another element. It's not just about it's not even close to just building and renovating and hammers and nails for us. It's a whole big collection of protecting our prospects and making sure that they have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed along their journey. So
Mm,
interesting stuff.
sure is. And look, doing anything on a home, there's a lot of education that comes into doing just the same as going to school, although we don't get this education at school.
No, we don't.
Nobody gets this sort of thing. Like managing your checkbook back in the day. Now I'm starting to feel old even saying this.
You guys.
um, it's those real life, those real world sort of things that aren't taught, and a lot of people are learning all of this, like what we hear people say, doing it in the trenches and all that sort of thing. The first time you go in to buy a house, you don't know what's in front of you because nobody's really spoken about it unless you talk to your parents about how they do it, or you've been involved with your parents while they've been buying a house, selling a house, and you learn about all the intricacies of the costs that come along from real estate agents when they go to sell your property, and then you've got your conveyances and the other legal fees and stamp duties, and then you've got to find out about the finance in that aspect, and then what's going to be involved with the capacity and valuation on the property, and it
Mm,
just adds on. There's always one thing after another.
yeah.
But if you go in the first time and you've got no idea about it, it is scary as all get out. You don't know what's going to be happening, and you don't know how many different things you're going to get charged with while you're doing this.
Exactly. It all just gets added on and on and on, and everyone's got taking their own piece of it, and suddenly you find yourself like,
Mm,
it is scary. It is
yep,
really
and
overwhelming time. So,
sure is.
mm, awesome. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you for your time today. It's a short one
No worries.
today, and yeah, we'll see you on the next episode.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to Builders Beyond Borders. If today's episode helped you feel more prepared, clearer, or more confident, share it with a mate who's planning their own build or reno. Got a question about building, renovating, or working with tradies? Send it our way. We might cover it in a future episode. And don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you never miss the real stories, practical tips, and builder insights we've got coming your way. Everything shared on this podcast is based on our experiences and those of our guests. It's general info only. Any reliance on the information provided is done at your own risk.